I told you everything was a giant blur, would you believe me?
I mean, that is the top. There's nowhere else to go.
It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
There were 5 team members and myself, so there were 6 of us, and then there was 13, wasn't there 13? I think there was 13 of us all together.
I think everyone flew into JFK from their respective hometowns. And then
So I flew to Boston with my dog and stayed overnight, and Veronica and her family also flew to Boston.
From Miami to New York.
And then we flew from Boston to JFK.
And then flew from there together as a team.
So we had 4, 5, 6 dogs with us. Well, you have to have an international health certificate, and then it had to be signed by a USDA office.
The biggest challenge we had for paperwork for this trip, though, was that the government strike.
The government shut down the day that half of them were supposed to go to the office and get their certificates.
We've never had trouble like this before. Never.
everything has to fall into place. And, you know, for something that major, you know, hey, you know, you might not be able to get your dogs there, or you might not be able to get yourselves there is really, really scary, because, you know, that's what we look forward to all year long. So to have it come down to that last moment and be like, oh, you might not be able to go. It's a little...
I was so concerned that I wouldn't get the paperwork that I physically drove to the USDA office in Tacoma.
They were closed up until 2 or 3 days before we had to go.
Luckily, the office near us was in Gainesville, and they had like one person working that was just there just to stamp those papers, so we got really lucky.
And then you get to the airport, and you have to fill out miles of paperwork, you know.
So that was kind of stressful to have the government on strike when we were trying to get those stamps.
That was really interesting. I've flown dogs plenty of times to competition, but I'd never seen them group them together. They actually put the 6 dogs on a pallet and put a mesh net over them, and I want to say like ratchet tied it down. So they picked up all 6 dogs on a skid and just slid them into the plane.
There they go. All the way in.
I think it was a 10-hour flight altogether. In the air. And got in at 7 in the morning. Okay, everybody, tell them how exhausted we are. Look, we're all here, yay! We didn't just go to the hotel because that would have been too easy. First, we had to get the rental van. Lulu was with us, Lulu Rodriguez, and she speaks Spanish, so we get the rental car, we get the GPS, she sets it in English for me, and we go to the tiniest garage I have ever seen in my life, okay? Literally, the van is 9 feet tall, and the garage roof is like 9'1". But because we had all the dogs and all the people, we couldn't get everybody in one run. So it took 2 runs to get everybody to the airport. And as soon as Doug Barry showed up, I gave up the keys instantly.
Once you get over there and start driving, the more you start driving every day, it's just, you just gotta drive like they do. You just gotta be crazy and just go with the flow.
We actually went that night just to kind of check it out, know where it was, just know where we were going.
We are trying to find how to get into the convention center.
We don't even know if we're in the right parking lot.
No, we're in the right lot. Oh, yeah.
Luckily, we went because the location that we thought it was another 10 minutes away. So we found out where we were, and we met the Atiros and kind of looked at the show and got a feel for it. And it was done in my opinion, exceedingly well.
Everything is so fancy and big, and the lights and the sound. I mean, we don't have anything like this here.
They are over the top. That is probably one of the nicest productions I've ever seen.
Loud pumping music and flash bulbs everywhere, paparazzi style.
I actually called it a Lady Gaga concert of grooming industry because that's what it felt like.
Showmanship and everything's dramatic. And there's like fog machines and it's crazy. It's really cool though.
Then we left. And at 8 o'clock at night in downtown Barcelona, the old Bull Ring is a mall. And there was some kind of activity going on. They have a large traffic circle. And I've never seen this in my life, but there's stoplights in the traffic circle. So you pull in and then you come to a stoplight. And it's 5 lanes across. It took us an hour to go around the traffic circle.
So this is us driving in Barcelona.
No, not driving in Barcelona.
Driving by the
Sitting in an idling car in Barcelona.
Lots of horns.
Being
honking
almost
everywhere.
hit by buses.
Buses.
There's a bus right behind us.
And there's a bus.
That is not the one that almost hit us, though.
You know, you cut off people, you know, and they'll sit there and just call you everything in the book, which you don't know what they're calling you, but you just, you know, all kinds of hand gestures they give you and stuff like that, but you just...
Very quickly I figured out the right-of-way goes to the one who has the most nerve. And that's how we drove the rest of the time we were in Spain. To going to compete, we got up 5:30, 6 o'clock. Because there were so many of us, we had to go over in shifts.
The first one I did was the day before the world competition, and then I had rented a Bichon from one of the Spanish groomers. And then I started grooming him, and his coat was really soft from the water softeners that they had in their water there. And then there was like this spotlight that was shining right on top of me, and I couldn't see a thing, and that was probably the worst groom I've ever done in my life.
What happened was the girls competed in an individual competition. They used the water in the product in Spain, and it turned out that the water is too soft. The coats are not used to it. The girls were not used to it, so coat didn't hold up for them. Good thing they competed because we wouldn't know the water is going to mess up the coat.
I don't know, I can't remember who brought the lemons.
Because if you rinse the dog with lemon acid water, it makes the coat harsher and takes all that softness away.
Like the hotel, and we sliced them up. And they had these big, like 64-ounce water bottles, like Pepsi bottles. So we filled them with water and soaked them overnight in lemons. But it definitely helped. Their coat conditioning was so much better because of that. Now, all the other competitors are like staring at us, and I don't know if it's in the video, but you can see them like peeking over the tub. They're like, what is the secret water the Americans have? So, yeah, if we hadn't competed in individuals the day before, we wouldn't have known that. You know, we wouldn't be able to prep our dogs.
So we were there early in the morning, let the dogs go to the bathroom, and just started bathing and drying and flat ironing and conditioning. And it took pretty much the whole morning. So we had to be in the ring at 1 o'clock, so.
You know, you're excited. You can't sleep the night before, even though you know you should be sleeping. And everyone's excited and nervous, and it's like a lot of pressure because when you make it to that spot where you make it to the top 5 in the country to go to represent your country, you don't want to get there and just flop.
And then, you know, the other thing too is to walk into a place like that and know that literally the best groomers in the world are there with their teams on the line. Like the best groomers in the world. Everybody who has worked so hard to prove their ability and be there, and it's an amazing energy. And then they call start, and like any good artist, you just start. And then everything sort of melts into the background and you just work your dog.
And once you start grooming, you forget about all the nervousness and all the concerns you had because you're already there, the dog's already on the table. All you have to do is groom a dog, so just enjoy.
It's just really cool to be there with your teammates that you've competed against all year, that now you're one big team.
In
And
that time frame, you have got to put everything aside and focus on your responsibilities in terms of this whole grooming community and those other 3 people.
I didn't become nervous until competition started, because I couldn't do anything.
So it is really a lot of pressure.
There was nothing I could do, and then it was even worse when it was scissors down. Now there's nothing any of us can do.
so we can look down the row and see every single dog that we're competing against, because they put everybody that's doing like the scissor dogs in one row and all the terriers in one row. So I'm done and I'm just sitting there and I have time to like look at the dogs and start, psyching myself out like, oh, that looks really good, and I don't know if my dog looks that good.
Then you just hope. And you're looking at your dog, of course. Then you're primping, right? You can't groom it anymore, but you can comb it and spit on it. Do all this. And you're like, okay, that looks pretty good. And
But then you're looking at their dog, you're like, oh, that dog looks really good. And then you look down their row, you're like, oh, that dog looks good too. And so it's just, at that point, I'm just like, okay, I just need to turn around, not look at those dogs, and just be done with it, because I can't do anything else at that point.
Once that was done, I was relieved that all the stress is behind me and everything, but also a little sad, because it was so much excitement coming in and it was over, right? You always feel like that when something like that is over.
And then they start calling the placements. And they make a cut of 6 or 7 teams at first.
Then we were nervous.
Each time they called out a name and it wasn't us, I think we got a little bit more nervous and a little bit more nervous.
We're down to USA and France. This has been a long-time rivalry, the USA and the France.
There's people like hugging everybody and like screaming and crying,
Jumping up and down like big cows, and we couldn't do anything about it. It was just emotions.
It's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. And the 3 people that were there grooming with me are amazingly talented. I knew we had a really good shot.
Honestly, I was so proud of the team effort that was involved. I truly believe if we hadn't had the people that we went over with, it wouldn't happen.
When they were up there and cracked open the champagne and spraying everybody.
Yes, it's really something special to be able to say that at that point in time, you were, the best at what you do in the world.
I will never forget that, of course, to the rest of my life. It's one of the highlights of my whole career, probably.
Retiring with a team gold medal. That shows the most dedication you can show in this industry. And I'm proud of it. Yeah. Yeah, now I'm gonna cry.
It was definitely memorable. I will never forget it.